Welcome to the Radiology Review podcast, your on-the-go source for radiology education with your host, Dr. Matt Covington, a board-certified radiologist. Please follow the podcast on Twitter at RadRevPodcast. Send emails to theradiologyreview@gmail.com or visit the website theradiologyreview.com.
I had a conversation with a resident today who was concerned about the potential that the ABR could delay the core exam, similar to how they recently delayed the ABR Diagnostic Radiology certifying exam that was scheduled to be in April because of concern for the COVID or coronavirus. I think this is a timely topic to address. I'm speaking as of March 9th, 2020, and I recognize this situation could clarify itself very quickly. But the question is, what are you as future test takers to do when the date of your exam is uncertain? First, I would recommend that you have a plan for either option. You already have developed a study plan for taking the core exam at the end of May or early June, and I would proceed as planned until the ABR gives you an indication whether that will or won't happen. If the ABR does decide to delay the exam, at that point you need to make an assessment of your study plan and your overall preparation and decide what's right for you. The way I see it, there's really two options. The first option is to continue studying as hard as you are now or as hard as you plan to study up until the exam date, however late it may be. That may be what is necessary if you feel like you may have a weaker grasp of certain concepts that are very important for the core exam, such as physics, or if you're somebody who generally has had a hard time with standardized testing. I probably wouldn't let up on the studying and just continue going. However, if you're somebody who does very well on standardized testing, you've never really had a problem passing these types of exams before, and you feel like you're understanding the concepts and able to retain the knowledge, then you may need to lighten your study schedule somewhat. Something I think everybody should consider is creating a few pages of study material on concepts that are the type of thing you want to review 1 to 2 weeks prior to taking the examination. I did this when I took the core exam and I found it really helpful. Let me explain a little bit more what I mean. In my situation, when I went through study material and I came across concepts or numbers or equations that I know are important for the exam, but I also know are the type of thing that I will memorize and quickly forget, I would write that down on a sheet of paper that I had dedicated to review a week before the exam. In my case, this was my last day study material, meaning my last full day of study, and again, the day before the examination. This is the material that I want to review. On this sheet, I had many things, including numbers of radiation safety and occupational dose limits, MQSA numbers, equations on how to convert one value to another, and a lot of numbers and equations pertaining to the physics portion of the examination. Additionally, if there is a specific concept that I know from QBanks or my studying that I continually forget and have a really hard time retaining, I would write that down. In the end, I ended up with 3 pieces of blank white paper that were filled front and back that I was then able to really focus on the week before and especially the day before the exam, so that when I entered the exam room, I knew everything was fresh. Something you might want to consider in terms of any potential delay to the ABR core exam is that you start making a sheet of material that is really high yield information that is also easy for you to forget and hard to retain in the long run. As you go through studying, if the exam gets delayed, you have this sheet already prepared. In this case, you might want to do something like information to review the 2 weeks prior to the exam instead of only a day prior to the exam, so it would be a little bit larger. If you have a dedicated study plan of material that you really know is high yield to get through, and then if the exam gets delayed, you can kind of go into maintenance mode on the general information, continue taking questions online, continue reading board review books, save the heavy lifting study until the month before the exam, whenever that may be. By so doing, you are preparing yourself now, whether the exam is in May and June, or whether it gets delayed to end of summer, or whatever that could look like. Also, you want to make sure that you don't get burned out, and if you are studying full steam ahead and the exam gets delayed to the end of the summer, that could end up being detrimental. So if the exam gets delayed, maybe consider lightening your study for a small period of time just so you don't mentally get burned out and end up damaging your ability to study hard later on. I wish all of you the best of luck with your studying. I know this examination is really tough. When I was studying for the exam and the majority of my co-residents were studying as well, we talk about it. And honestly, I think there were points where all of us kind of questioned our decision to go into radiology because this examination is just that daunting to prepare for. However, I do want to assure you that for the large majority of test takers, you can expect to pass it the first time. You will get through it, and then you'll be able to move on. And the road looks a lot brighter once you get this examination behind you. I think becoming a radiologist is one of the best decisions you could possibly make. This is a wonderful career. There's so much to offer and so much good you can do with the knowledge that you get as a resident. And a lot of the knowledge that you get that you will retain with you throughout your career is gained by studying for the core exam. I promise that all the hard work you put in the end does make a difference. If you have any questions or comments about this, please reach out to me. You can reach me at theradiologyreview@gmail.com. Also, if you find this podcast helpful, please share with your friends. Thank you. Content of this podcast is provided for informal educational purposes only for radiology trainees and radiologists. Medical practitioners, please make your own independent assessment before suggesting a diagnosis or recommending any course of treatment. This podcast should not be used for self-diagnosis or self-treatment and is not a substitute for independent professional medical care. Please consult your own physician regarding any diagnosis, imaging interpretation, or course of treatment.